Hello everybody, I'm Eternal Flame here, and today I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while and that I've talked about on stream a couple times, which is Kashimo versus Sukuna and just trying to rewrite the fight. Mainly because, in my opinion, Kashimo versus Sukuna is probably the most wasted fight potential in all of JJK, only being rivaled by that of Hikari versus Urame, but that is for an entirely different day, because man, that fight, I feel so bad for people. At least Kashimo actually did get a fight against Sukuna. That wasn't off screen, however, that's just for another day like I said. So now I want to talk about Kashimo versus Sukuna, if there are ways to make it better, and what I would ultimately change in order to make it better. However, before I can even do that, I need to go over what the problems are with the fight itself, and then I can hop into how to make it better. Now, in my opinion, there are a couple problems with Kashimo versus Sukuna. One of the biggest problems that I have that I don't think as many people have is the actual time where this fight takes place. This is because they immediately have Kashimo hop in while Sukuna is still missing an arm and weakened from his battle against Gojo, and in my opinion, that is wildly out of character for Kashimo. Keep in mind also, Kashimo should have no idea that Sukuna is even able to transform into his Heian era form, so that's not really an option for Kashimo to know about, and he also tried to kill him before he even got that chance. And you might be wondering, why do I say that this is wildly out of character? Well, let's look back to a similar moment, one where Hikari was fighting against Kashimo, and Hikari was trying to get Jackpot. Kashimo realized in that moment that it would be easier to just wait for the Jackpot timer to be done and kill him after. However, instead, he chose to take it as a challenge, and instead decided he was going to kill Hikari whether he was immortal or not. He was going to kill him in this 4 minutes and 11 seconds, and he was going to make his immortality irrelevant. Now, I think it's pretty obvious why I think these two interactions directly contradict each other, and the other one against Sukuna just feels wildly out of character for Kashimo, someone who wanted to fight against the strongest and use his curse technique on the strongest. So why would he want to use it on the strongest when they're in such a weakened state? Now, in my opinion, this issue actually has quite a simple fix, which the fix to this issue is have Kashimo fight Sukuna before everybody else. Have Kashimo fight Sukuna during the 1 month time skip. Now, the main reason why I think this is a pretty simple fix is because Kashimo really has no reason to be with the cast, like, at all, mainly because his contribution amounts to literally nothing. At best, the best you can really say is Kashimo forced Sukuna to transform. However, you could just write in Gojo had damaged him so much that after Sukuna used the world-cutting slash, he decided it would be more optimal to transform rather than staying in that form. So you really don't need Kashimo for this. It's not like Kashimo helps with the planning either. Kashimo really just ultimately does not do much. There is even a pretty unique circumstance that you could put Kashimo in, where Kashimo decides to go over to one of Sukuna's fingers and finds it first, while Sukuna and Urame are hunting for the fingers. Rather than having Sukuna just wait and send Urame out, Sukuna can go with Urame, and that is how they end up finding Kashimo. Then Sukuna can decide he wants to fight Kashimo, he wants to have fun, and he might as well. After all, he has a month to wait, since he actually has to fight the sorcerer, so he might as well have fun fighting against this guy. Now, I know this is ultimately going to end up feeling more like a filler fight, mainly because of the fact that Kashimo is just going to show up, fight Sukuna, and die, but let's be real, Kashimo versus Sukuna was always going to be more of a filler fight. We all already knew what the outcome to Kashimo versus Sukuna was always going to be, being Kashimo was ultimately going to use his technique and not take out Sukuna, because there was no way he was going to be the one to take out Sukuna. However, now we're going to move on to the next problem that I have with Kashimo versus Sukuna and what I would do to improve that problem, which this next problem is going to be significantly harder to improve in comparison to the problem I had previously. Now, up first, I need to discuss what the main purpose of Kashimo vs. Sukuna was, which that purpose was pretty simple. Make Sukuna look strong from the fact that he was able to beat someone like Kashimo. However, I ultimately believe he failed in that, mainly because Kashimo does not look that strong. Now, I do need to note this. I know for a fact Kashimo is much stronger than a lot of people give credit for. I do not think Kashimo is weak. That's not at all what I am saying. And when I say look strong, I don't mean that Kashimo needs to be some big muscular guy. No. What I mean is Kashimo needs to seem much more impressive than he actually is. After all, the main things that Kashimo did was give Hikari an extremely diff fight, which Hikari himself already has contentious scaling because the best we can do is a statement for him, as well as get the most points in the culling games against people we don't really know, other than the fact that Kashimo literally says that these people are weak in comparison to the people he fought in his era. So if you're just a non-power skiller or just a normal person and you're going into the fight reading it like a normal person, you're not really going to be impressed by Sukuna's strength, you're just going to think that Kashimo is weak. Now, the main reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people don't just think that Sukuna is some unstoppable force for beating Kashimo because of this. Instead, from what they've seen from the fight, it just looks like Kashimo is weak. So how would I fix that? Well, the easiest way to fix that is to go to another example of something similar happening in JJK. However, instead of people getting the impression that the character is weak for losing to Sukuna, a lot of people understand that Sukuna is strong for being capable of beating this character, and I think a lot of you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jogo. Now, Jogo, in my opinion, has the opposite problem of Kashimo, where because Jogo had done so well in his performance, even though he wasn't able to land a single hit on Sukuna and looked so impressive, a lot of people think he's much stronger than he actually is. This is mainly due to two things that allow Jogo to be a much better jobber for Sukuna in comparison to Kashimo. Jogo had been hyped up for a pretty long while, and we actually got to see him fight against somebody who wasn't named Gojo. He one-shotted 3 sorcerers. Now granted, these were 3 heavily tired and injured sorcerers, but he still one-shotted the 3 of them nonetheless, which people still consider a rather impressive feat. And then he goes on to fight Sukuna himself, and this is especially helped by the anime, but the manga also kinda shows Jogo doing pretty well as well, where Jogo is shown destroying buildings, pushing his curse technique to its limits in an attempt to hit Sukuna. And because of the level of destruction that is going on with Jogo, it's made pretty clear that no one in the cast would have been able to stand a chance against him other than maybe Yuki later on, so if Sukuna didn't wipe him out here and now, Jogo probably would have just ended everybody. Oh, and Mahoraga, of course, is also capable of wiping out Jogo. However, this ended up helping Sukuna as well, because someone like Jogo, who has just been shown to be rather strong, couldn't even land a single hit on Sukuna. That someone this strong was being completely toyed around with. Now compare what Jogo does in the manga to what Kashimo does in the manga. He lands a punch on a weakened Sukuna, and then he throws a lightning bolt at him, and then he yells at him. That is what Kashimo effectively does before he starts to get completely dominated. The worst part is we also get a really cool description for what his curse technique is capable of, which a lot of people have done research on to show that Kashimo's curse technique is capable of doing some really crazy stuff. However, Kashimo never really does anything with it. Like, yeah, I know he launched out electromagnetic waves at Sukuna, but those are kind of just brushed off really easily. However, how do I change this? I'm not saying that this needs to be some Jogo versus Sukuna level 2. I genuinely don't think that Kashimo should be that destructive of a fighter, however, I do think Kashimo should have some chances to show off a bit. And the aspect that I think Kashimo should be able to show out in is speed, which is where we're going to start talking about the first change I would make to the fight. If there's one thing that the Jujutsu Kaisen community knows Kashimo for, it's speed. After all, for a pretty long while, Kashimo has the fastest attack in the entire verse, and now he still has the fastest attack. It's just with his curse technique instead of with his lightning. After all, people's method of getting JJK to light speed is based on Kashimo for a reason. Now, for the sake of not trying to start a debate, I'm not saying if this is or is not valid, that I'm leaving completely up to you. I'm just acknowledging the fact that Kashimo is mainly known for speed. So effectively, let Kashimo wild out a bit in speed, make Kashimo somewhat hard to track in the fight between Sukuna, and just show Kashimo repeatedly outspeeding him, not actually being capable of damaging him, however he's just straight up outspeeding him when his curse technique is active. I'm going to get back into what I think should be changed about his curse technique later in, however I do want to talk about how I would have the fight itself go. Where basically for most of the fight, Kashimo's main thing that's keeping him alive currently is his speed. He knows that if he were to get hit by most of Sukuna's attacks, it would be incredibly lethal for him, but he's able to land hundreds of blows on him, hundreds of normal physical blows that don't really do much damage to Sukuna, but is able to knock him back and push him around. Where the main thing that is causing issues for Sukuna currently is actually the lightning bolt sets Kashimo is using, mainly because he's just repeatedly firing them out. And thanks to the speed that Kashimo is going to be moving at, he's able to cause charges. Now, of course, this isn't going to cause too much lethal damage for Sukuna, but it's still going to hurt him. This could also be used to show off Sukuna's battle intelligence as well. Show off Sukuna thinking on ways on how to get around this fast opponent and trying to predict his next moves. On some Goku versus Hit type energy where he predicts each of his movements. And during one of Kashimo's blitz attempts, Sukuna ends up landing a punch on Kashimo and doing heavy damage in that strike. Basically, the flow of the fight and how it's going to go is at first Kashimo looks like he is having the advantage. He's able to land a bunch of hits on Sukuna, and Sukuna can't really do anything about it other than take the damage. Of course, Sukuna is launching out counterattacks, but Kashimo is able to dodge them, knowing that if Kashimo gets hit by even one of the slashes, he is likely dead. However, eventually Sukuna figures out how to beat him with hand-to-hand, and figures out how to predict his movements, eventually reaching the point where he actually ends up beating him. Now this could be done through just Sukuna predicting his movements, but it could also just be done through Mahoraga, or using the 10 shadows to his advantage as well in the fight in order to distract him. There are tons of tactics that can be pulled out in a fight like this, and figuring out how to work around Kashimo's curse technique, and how to work around the massive amount of speed that he has access to, with him eventually dying, and likely the end scene that we have between Kashimo and Sukuna where they talk, playing out the same other than just Meguna appearing rather than Sukuna in his true form. This results in not just Kashimo looking somewhat stronger than he actually is, but also results in Sukuna looking a lot stronger, and that pure raw speed is not the answer on how to beat Sukuna. That you can be faster than Sukuna and fire as many attacks as you want, if they're not going to do damage to Sukuna, they are meaningless, and by extension, Kashimo just can't beat Sukuna. Now, Kashimo is still going to look strong, but Kashimo is going to show that why Sukuna is so strong as well in their battle. And now finally I'm going to talk about the alterations I would make to Kashimo's curse technique, and there's not really many alterations I would make other than one alteration, which is rather than his curse technique actually killing him, instead the reason why his curse technique kills him is because of a binding vow he placed on it in order to massively amp it for when he fights against Sukuna. The main reason why I do that is because I feel like that would just magnify and amplify his character more and more, magnify how much he really needs to fight against Sukuna and how much he wants this end. After all, we paint the narrative that he believes that if he uses curse technique on anybody else, he wouldn't be worthy of getting that death against Sukuna. I also just think a binding vow that kills you would just be a lot cooler in comparison to a curse technique that's going to kill you. Finally, there is the final alteration I would make to Kashimo's character, which is confirming the fact that he was the strongest of his time period that he was alive for. I wouldn't make it up in the air or for debate, I'd just straight up make it clear that he is the strongest. Currently, the reason why a lot of people assume that Kashimo was the strongest is because of his narrative he has of the strongest that's going on, similar to Gojo and Sukuna's narrative. However, there's not really anything that confirms it. A lot of people interpret it as Kashimo was the strongest in his area, rather than him being the strongest of his era. I just think it would help with Kashimo's narrative and Sukuna's narrative by extension if they make Kashimo the strongest of that era, by showing that no one in the past is able to take out Sukuna and only the modern era of sorcerers is able to take out Sukuna. Finally, I do also think this would serve as hype for the Gojo vs Sukuna battle, as this would serve as a little bit of a sneak peek for what we are going to get for when Gojo ends up battling against Sukuna. And that's how I would improve the fight to make it better from what we got in canon, but I want to see what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys think that the canon fight that we got is absolutely perfect, or do you guys want this improvement of the fight, or do you guys have your own ways you would improve the fight to make it better? I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below.